I made one promise at 61, not to my husband, to myself. And for the first 2 years after I made it, I was convinced it was going to cost me everything I had ever loved. I turned 108 last February. You know what? Nobody warns you about getting that old. It's not the slow mornings or the way your hands shake when you pour the coffee. It's not the forgetting where you put things, though, Lord, that happens plenty. It's not even watching everyone around you get old while you keep going somehow. It's the years. The quiet years you spent folding yourself in half so a marriage could keep its shape, bending yourself down small so the house stayed peaceful, swallowing the thing you wanted to say so dinner wouldn't get ruined. I did it every day for decades, and I called it keeping the peace. I called it love. My name is Cordelia, not the Shakespeare one, honey. Though I did read that play twice and I had thoughts. Born 1917, Louisville, Kentucky, where the winters came in through the window frames, no matter how much newspaper you stuffed in the cracks, and the whole house smelled like wood smoke from October to March. Something about growing up cold like that teaches you to take up less space, to be grateful just for the warmth. I carried that lesson into my marriage like it was wisdom. And I want to tell you something that took me until I was 61 to actually understand, not just understand. Because you can learn a thing and still be a complete fool about it every single morning you wake up. I called it devotion. For years, I called it exactly that. Here it is. A promise you make to yourself is the only promise that can save everything else. Because when you stop honoring yourself, you stop bringing anything real to the people you love. I had a husband, Walter. He had this habit of humming while he read the newspaper, not any particular song, just a low, steady sound, like he was content just being alive. And Lord, that sound could make you feel like the whole world was settled and safe. And then that same afternoon he could say 3 words in a certain tone and make you feel like everything you thought, everything you wanted, was just noise getting in the way of his quiet. I kept Walter in my life for 47 years. 47 years. In that time, I made myself smaller in ways I didn't even have words for. I stopped mentioning the things I wanted to do, the evening classes, the garden I kept planning, the letter I wanted to write to my sister for 2 years and never sent. I stopped disagreeing at the table because the air would change and stay changed for days. I stopped, and I stopped even knowing what I thought about things, unless Walter had said something first. Like a plant bending away from light instead of toward it. I told myself, that's commitment. That's partnership. But that wasn't partnership. That was disappearing wearing commitment's clothes. And disappearing is a terrible partner. Nothing ever grows right. Joy doesn't leave a marriage in one big moment. It doesn't slam the door on its way out. It creeps. It normalizes. One day you give something up for the sake of the morning, and you correct yourself softly. Next time you don't correct yourself at all. A month later, you forgot you ever had the want. People settle into patterns. Good people. People who love each other deeply. Not from cruelty, from comfort. From the slow understanding that this particular thing, your voice at the table, your preference on a Sunday, your right to want something for yourself, you won't hold it. You'll feel it, but you won't hold it. And once a marriage learns that, once it settles into that groove of one person giving and the other just receiving without noticing, your position in that marriage shifts. Not the love, not the years together, your position in it. You become the one who exists for the marriage, not in it, for it. Clears throat. I made a mistake once, a bad one. Early on in our years together, I pulled away from Walter during a time he needed me. Not on purpose, but intention doesn't clean the mess, does it? The guilt of that sat in my chest like a stone that never quite dissolved. I could feel it when I woke up. Heavy. There. So I gave him everything after that. My time. I stopped going to the Tuesday Bible study I loved because he didn't like eating supper alone. My money. I handed over every bit of my teaching pay without a thought for 31 years. My voice. Every opinion I had, I checked it against what I thought he'd want before I let it out. I thought I was being faithful. I was disappearing. And here's what nobody tells you about disappearing slowly inside a marriage. Nobody notices until you're completely gone. Sometimes, not even then. I'd be sitting right next to Walter at the Sunday table and feel like a piece of furniture. Present. Unnoticed. An apology is enough. A real one. You owning the wrong, changing the behavior. That is the full payment. Anyone still sending you a bill after that isn't collecting what you owe them. They're collecting your self-worth piece by piece and calling it fairness. Don't let them cash that. Now, I want to talk about the promise you're terrified to make. There's a choice sitting in your head right now. Don't pretend there isn't. The one that would require you to ask for something. The one that's been sitting so long that picking it up now feels like surgery with nothing to dull the pain. The one that is so small and reasonable that making it shouldn't feel hard at all, and yet it does, every single time, like clockwork. You've been letting it wait. Small delays, sure, but they stack. Nobody notices one unwashed cup left on the counter. 50 unwashed cups later, and the whole kitchen smells like something that gave up. What you keep postponing becomes what you keep losing. It is not complicated. It is only uncomfortable to say out loud to yourself in a quiet room with nowhere to hide. I finally said something to Walter. The real thing. The one I'd been pressing down for years. Before I spoke, my throat was tight and my hands were pressed flat on the kitchen table just to feel something solid. My heart was doing something I didn't have a name for, but I said it calm, said it clear. No big speech, just, I have to start keeping a promise to myself or I'm going to lose who I am, and then you'll lose me too. He went very still. Then he left the room. I sat at that table for 3 long days with nothing but the sound of the house. Did I say it wrong? Was I too harsh? Should I have waited? Then the 4th morning, I made my red rose tea, 1 sugar, no milk, and sat on the back steps. The yard was frosted over, and the light came in sideways and cold and quiet. Not in my head. In my chest. Something settled that I hadn't felt settle in 7 years. 7 years. That's not a marriage lost. That's a woman found. Walter came back to that kitchen, and what happened after that was the first honest conversation we'd had in longer than I could count. Here is the truth that took me nearly a century to stop fighting. Nobody is permanent. The version of your marriage you're protecting right now exists for a season. Some seasons last decades, some shift in a single honest moment, but they all change. That's not pessimism. That's just the honest shape of a life. Fighting the change by folding yourself smaller every year, giving up one more thing, going quiet one more time. That isn't love keeping the marriage alive. It's slow erosion calling itself sacrifice. And you can only erode so far before there's nothing left to give. You will survive choosing yourself inside a marriage. You've survived every hard thing that came before this. Every single one. The losses that looked unsurvivable, the years that left a mark, the mornings you got up anyway when you had no reason to. You survived every last one. So believe it deep in your chest, not just in your head, that the promise you make to yourself is not a threat to your marriage. So make the promise, not from anger, not from pride or spite. The version of you that stops folding, stops going quiet, stops swallowing the thing that needs to be said. That version doesn't need to chase anybody. It gets chosen. And the ones who choose it, those are your people, not the ones you've been shrinking for. Not the ones who got comfortable with your silence, your actual people. I've buried a husband I loved more than I knew how to say. Buried friendships that held me up for 30 years, buried versions of myself I was certain I needed to keep in order to survive. And the only regret that still sits heavy in this old chest, the only one that followed me all the way into this age, is how long I waited to make that promise. How many mornings I stood at the kitchen window with my tea going cold in my hands and talked myself back out of it. How many years I told myself the marriage needed me small, when the truth is, it needed me whole. You can't give real love from an empty place. You can only give it from a self that's still standing. And a marriage that can only survive when one person disappears was never really a marriage at all. It was just one person holding up the walls and calling it a home. Make the promise. The one that saves your marriage by first saving